We're a creative studio working for internal agencies. We're happy to be back on stage because I want to introduce you to one of my favorite client voices, which is Erica. She's awesome. If you've gotten a chance to say hi to us already, I'm glad you did. If you haven't gotten a chance to say hi to us, please go ahead. She's been at the intersection of digital marketing and content operations for a couple of decades. Her practical, results-oriented leadership has helped solve business challenges at clients such as Intel and Xerox, and for the past 6 years as a partner of ours at Meta. And I can't say enough great things about her leadership. So, A&A, meet Erica. Erica, meet the A&A. You are all awesome. It's a pretty amazing room of people doing great work. Here's some of the things that I like about her the most. I'm going to brag about you just for a second. She doesn't know anything about this script. She's got lots of experience being a fearless, fun, and effective leader. She knows how to build partnerships and relationships. We were just talking about that before we got on stage. And knows how to partner with internal stakeholders. And she's going to share a little bit about that. So that she can get and use data, talk about results, be part of the business solution, and also part of the governance and rules and process part of it. So you've got so much knowledge. I'm going to stop talking, stop bragging about you. I will later on if you want to come by. Why don't you share a little bit about you and your story and how you create effective partnerships, starting a little bit with data science analytics partnership.
Yeah. So I've leaned into data science and analytics as like a key partner of mine for at least a decade, probably more. I hate to admit the patina that we've been talking about. But I don't have that kind of a background. I have 2 degrees in history. I do not have an MBA. I am not the profile of an analyst, but I love making friends with them. I appreciate the point that's been made in a couple of different sessions around inserting yourselves where perhaps you don't originally see as belonging, and having curiosity around what you do, because I found that what I can measure really opened up when I started asking questions. When I started going to our analysts, first at Xerox and throughout my career, and saying, this is the problem that I'm trying to solve, instead of, this is the great marketing that I've created, can you tell me how well it did? And so what I learned over the years through that is that data science and analytics is as much kind of a design process as working in the creative. And so when we can bring the analysts in, even when we're writing our briefs, even as we're working on what is the marketing strategy, to understand like what is and is not measurable here. What is a good kind of hypothesis? What's the good gut check level kind of approval? And then what can we actually truly measure on a campaign, on evergreen material, et cetera? That inclusivity of your data science partners like brings them in. And you know, an example we were just talking about is, you know, we have put things up for awards countless times. We get a smackdown when we show up late to analytics and say, we did this really amazing thing and now we want to prove that it was great. When we say, we want to do something that's going to be really inspiring, can you be with us for the journey? That is when like we have such an amazing story to tell at the end of it. And so, you know, just really showing up and asking lots of questions and bringing people in as part of the problem solving.
And a strength of being an internal player is you can get access.
Yes.
Right, if you build those partnerships. We were chatting, I had the privilege, thank you A&A, for doing some judging for the awards tonight, so hopefully those cases I loved win. But to be honest, there were lots of cases I didn't love because you all didn't do results very well, and your strategy didn't really start with the business problem or thinking through the analytics side. So the thought that the strength of being internal is that you can build partnerships with your data analytics team, and if anybody has data, Erica's team has data and knowledge and smart people to do it, is the kind of partnership building that made me shout out those earlier presentations, right? On the Cisco side, you were talking about partnership, and on the Affleck side, you're talking about partnership, and bringing diverse voices is a great place to bring partnership too. So I love that. How do you communicate the impact of that work once you kind of have some of that at the briefing level, at the start of the brief level, or analysis in place?
Yeah. I think that's where I mentioned understanding kind of the tiers, honestly, of what you can communicate and how much you're going to have to communicate. There are some things that are rational. That we don't necessarily have the data to prove, but this is where good old logic comes into play, and we get guidance from our analytics partners even on where to lean into just the logic versus where to lean into them, and how to use them, because there are things that they're like, don't waste our time. Just creative teams will sometimes say, please don't waste my time on certain projects. But what can we use that's kind of just a logical, solid inference? And then where do we need to have, we're pushing for, that is clearly a statistical significance on we were able to influence an audience to take a specific action that leads to product adoption, leads to brand lift, et cetera. And so we really try to choose our investments well, and work with our partners on where to invest their time and their talent to be able to tell the story, so that we cover that span of kind of how we're telling it. I loved the comment earlier today around how cost avoidance is sexy to finance. This is an example where we bring finance in as early as possible too. We guide our marketers to bring finance and analytics together, so that some of those stories aren't an analytics story. They are the cost saving story. They are the business benefit story. It is how we track and measure our time, not just how we drove a result. And so it's really kind of picking the right partners to tell the story with us, and amplifying their voices, because there is so much more credibility for our team when our finance partner is like, this is legit, versus when I'm saying it.
One of my favorite clients, because did you hear the number of times she said partner in an inclusive way as part of the team in that sentence? You're awesome. Talk a little, you're also strategically talking about creative or content operations as part of the strategic mix, not just an operational part of the mix.
Right.
We all understand, there was that process chart yesterday with the 332 steps of the creative process. We all feel that. How does that insight and your partnership orientation overlap with governance, rules, and structure to make it all happen?
Oh my God, governance is good. I love governance. It's in my
Put your hand up if you love governance.
I think the governance is good talk is one that I have had with more kind of peers and leaders at any company than any other, probably, because governance is what helps us to be able to do things routinely, and governance is what makes things less personal. They make doing what's right for governance helps as an assist to kind of making the decisions about the business instead of about so-and-so said no, so-and-so said I don't have resources for that, or the more that we can have established patterns and routines and templates, et cetera, the more it means that we have time to be as creative and to kind of get into the mess where we need to, because we're not doing it all the time. I like to talk with my team about how it's our job to lift the cognitive load off of other people, and we're doing that by making sure that we have as much kind of routine, kind of expected activities and behavior, so that we can really dedicate time and resources where they should be as much as possible.
Right, time's the only true valuable in the world.
Yeah.
And you just talked about using the box or using the rules to free up time to be the creative's friend and your partner's friend.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so who wants to come talk about governance after we're over, right? So you make it your friend, you get more done, become more of the hero in your organization. I love that. Okay, so let's get into the creative nitty-gritty, because we've been talking a little bit about operations and partnership. How do operations and house creatives, in your words, scratch each other's backs for success?
It comes back to kind of how closely can we work together again. And I want to be clear, that does not mean we all have to be in all the meetings, right? But we have to understand where each other is playing and when to call upon each other. When do we pull in creative teams, even as we're looking, as we're trying to de-silo some of the work that we do, for example. When do we pull people in and get the real world perspective on, kind of what operationally needs to change so that people can have more success, so that people can spend more of their time actually creating something new instead of looking for something as their reference point or as their building blocks. So the more that we can really engage with each other to then create the processes where we can work efficiently and effectively to, at the things we're best at, is a key piece for me. I think the other thing is just I really appreciated the comment on from, I think it was Jared, saying insert yourself. Be bold at inserting yourself where you think you need to be. I think it's really important to just go ask questions. It's funny, I used to have a very bad relationship with one of the in-house creative teams that I worked with. I was on the digital side, and we were kind of hearing that they didn't like us.
Right.
And so I literally went and just co-located with the creative team. I just went to where their team primarily worked, and was on the fringe, and literally physically worked my way in. Amazing. Over the process of about a month. And they're like, oh, she's cool. She speaks our language. She's not this really oppressive process person, because I say things like governance is amazing. And and we've developed really good, genuine friendships over time. But you've got to find the ways to make people comfortable and learn as much as possible about them. Even when you literally are hearing they don't like you.
Isn't she amazing? For me, one of the skills that I'm most proud of, and I come out of the old agent, think Don Draper, and then think an asshole to the right of Don Draper, that was me when I was 30 and my first ad VP. I was a real jerk. And I'm not 30 anymore, so over the past 25 years, the skill that I'm most proud of developing is the one that Erica was just talking about, right? Which is listening and taking the time to understand and taking the time to empathize before you try to create value and make things happen. As part of the agency process, whether you're an internal agency or whether you're like us, a studio that supports internal agency, or you're like the agency that was on stage earlier, that's like the brand agency on top that's sort of trying to partner with the internal agency. If you take the time to sit with them, to slow down and listen first, mm-hmm. 2 ears, 1 mouth style, mm-hmm. you can create a lot of value. It's like the simplest lesson that took me the longest to learn. And if I could impart anyone thinking about what you do, it's the way you do partnership, which is really as people are people level. And those sessions I shouted out talked about that a ton too. So, okay, and now I'm going on a little too much. I think we're close to the end. Is there anything else that that you haven't talked about that you think the audience, based on what you've heard so far?
Let's see. I think a key piece. I think the accordion of process was so important. I think I absolutely snapped a photo of that and sent it back to the team, because even when we feel well established, we're always iterating, right, on how to communicate good messages to our partners and to people that we need to get on board. we don't need to bear all of our cards of how complex things are all the time. So like the tiering of even the communication is great. I also think that it's, it can't be said enough that really thinking about kind of how to level the analytics. We were doing so many side conversations about this one, but thinking through how to start kind of earning your way into getting more analytics support. Analytics, I think, at almost all companies is a hot commodity and probably under-resourced even more than creative teams. And so starting with, I feel like a little bit of if you give a mouse a cookie with our analytics team sometimes, of can you do one project for us? And then when we have traction and success, can we do more and can we do more? To pull the analysts in, because they do get some level of choice on what they work on, just like our teams do.
Right.
And then we've had some really good conversations with different folks around kind of we're all problem solving through this all the time, right? Like none of us have this entirely figured out. That's why we come to learn. And so, we're still working on kind of how to de-silo and how to bring everybody together. And so also welcome kind of getting to hear about that.
Awesome. There was a slide, be curious, right?
Yes.
You're not in this room if there's not a part of you that is creative, believes in great work, and it starts with that curiosity that you just talked about, and build on it over time. This is a client that iterates brilliantly over time, and this is a person who iterates. So wow, you get the same wow that those other sessions did from me. I think you're amazing. I've already said it a million times. But more importantly, it's a privilege to know you, to see how you do partnerships.
I have a question for you.
Oh, shucks. This is not the job. Go ahead.
So you get the privilege of working across a lot of teams. You work with ours, but you work with a lot of other teams too.
Yeah.
What are the characteristics that you like most when you are considering what business you want to do? How do in-house creative teams also? It is a two-way street, right?
Yeah.
And we have fostered a good relationship over time. But what are the things that you look for, and what are things that you feel cautious about when you get to peer inside all of our teams?
It is a choice who you support as an external partner. And sometimes that choice, people say it explicitly, or sometimes they just blow the pitch or don't even show up. And so the relationships matter a lot to us because we care about our people. And what I love about the relationship with you and your firm is that our people are treated as real partners, not just executors, and they're really made it's an inclusive environment, which I really appreciate. I like working with people who care about the work, regardless of how famous the work is. All of the work is important. So our teams are often executing at scale once the strategy is done. Once the branding is in place, and then suddenly, like we do work for Indeed, where literally the team has cut down 2,000 30-second videos from a library of footage, all templated, but the work is important from a business results perspective. And so, the Don Drapers of the world sort of just shun that work, but it's important work and to be recognized and celebrated for that work. So every week, we with our team do a shout out session about the client work that they're on. They get to shout out the people they worked with, client side and agency side, that made the work happen. And they get to share out the work that they did that they felt was most valuable or important to them. And often those share outs are not the work that's making the awards or making the screens happen, but it is the work that's making the money for the organization that's in the trenches doing it.
Yeah, it's the not sexy stuff that we do all day, every day.
That's right.
That really is where the relationships are formed. And like when you're doing kind of the routine things on an ongoing basis and solving problems, you build those relationships, but it's also the stuff that like you keep coming back for.
And so a partner who talks like that is the kind of partner or partnership that we're always looking for, where people who know that all of the work is important and all of the people that do the work that are important and all the people that do the work are on the team and part of the team. So like that's just the right spirit for sure. So thank you for sharing. We're out of time, shit. If you have not met Erica or me or Nolan or if you just want to mingle a little bit and be social, I promise you we are the most social crew that's going to be here over the next day. Come say hello. She's lovely. And we'll share more one-on-one. Give her a big wave, hello, like a warm, like, hey, we're from the ANA, and we're so happy that you're here, along with your round of applause. And thanks for the time over your lunch break. Was it valuable?
Thank you.
Good job.